Hello and welcome to the Aunty Lisa show. Today we are doing a story with Aunty Lisa, Aleksander and Kristoffer, the Sunny Bunnies for some reason, Lucy, a paper plane, superpowers, the toilet, and Ben and Holly. Okay, so one day Aunty Lisa, Aleksander and Kristoffer were having a paper plane making competition in the back garden. And Aunty Lisa had built a really cool paper plane that she thought was awesome and was definitely going to win. It was designed to look like a bat, which she thought was pretty cool. Kristoffer had designed one that he thought was going to win, and it was designed to look like a pteranodon. And Aleksander had designed his one, which he thought was going to win, and that one looked like a pterodactyl, which is also pretty scary. I'm now thinking, I really hope you're not going to tell me that pterodactyls aren't a real thing. I'm sure they are. Let's go with them being a real thing. And you can correct me later if I'm wrong. It's not one of those ones where they decided it wasn't real after all. I don't know. It was a flying, scary dinosaur type thing. Anyway, so the day of the contest arrived and we were all really, really excited. It said, ready, steady, go! And Aleksander, Kristoffer and Aunty Lisa all threw their paper planes as hard as they could. Aunty Lisa's paper plane did this. She was very disappointed because it crash landed onto the ground no more than about 50 centimetres away from her. About, oh, you can't see. Not that far. It wasn't very impressive, and she was very upset about it. It also broke. It was very disappointing. Aleksander's plane and Kristoffer's plane flew and flew and flew and flew. And everyone went, uh-oh, where have they got to? Well, they flew right out of the back garden and along the path behind for such a long way that everyone had to jump over out through the back gate and run round and see if they could find them. So they raced round as fast as they could to see where those paper planes had got to, but they were still flying. It was quite an impressive sight, seeing these paper planes that looked just like prehistoric creatures flying through the air of Stavanger. So, Aunty Lisa and Aleksander and Kristoffer were still chasing the paper planes when all of a sudden it began to rain. And it rained so heavily you would not even believe how heavy it rained. It was the kind of rain that made you instantly, completely and utterly soaking wet. No one was prepared. Everyone was soggy. The paper planes that were unbelievably magnificent and had definitely flown further than you would ever imagine immediately crash landed. No! But they had still flown further than any paper plane anyone else had made. So they crash landed into a grassy patch. And Aleksander, Kristoffer and Aunty Lisa raced over there. Not chased over there. They didn't need to chase them anymore. They'd crashed. Raced over there to see what had happened. Oh, they were super soggy paper planes. But when Aleksander and Kristoffer picked them up off the ground, they noticed something underneath. And it was a very, very, very small little house. Aleksander said, "Hey, Aunty Lisa, there's a toy house down here. Would you believe it? My paper plane landed on a toy house." And Kristoffer said, "Hey, Aunty Lisa, I think there's a toy castle down here too. Ooh, let's play with the toy castle and the toy house." So The rain had stopped and the sun had come out, and Aunty Lisa thought, well, it's a warm day, we'll soon dry off. So they decided to play with the toy house and the toy car. The toy car? There wasn't a toy car. It was crazy. There was a toy castle. Anyway, they were just getting around to playing when they noticed something moving inside the castle. And Alexander said, what on earth is that inside the toy castle? And they peered in. And it was a teeny tiny weeny person. Of course it was. It was Holly. Or was it Ben? Which one is the one that lives in the castle? It was Holly. She lives in the castle. Of course she does, silly me. Anyway, it was Holly. And then they peered down near the teeny tiny little house that it turned out was more of a knoll with a little door in it as opposed to a standard looking house. And out came a ladybird. And they went, well, that's not unusual. But behind the ladybird was a teeny tiny little person. And it was Ben. And Aleksander and Kristoffer went, wow, it's Ben and Holly. We thought that was just a made-up cartoon. Aunty Lisa said, I thought that was just a made-up cartoon too. Did we eat something funny for lunch? Are we seeing things? And then Ben and Holly went, hello. Please don't tell any other big people about us. How did you find us? And they explained about the paper planes and the rain and the crash landing. And Ben and Holly went, oh, wow. Well, that is pretty cool, actually. Would you like to play with us? And Aleksander and Kristoffer went, yeah, but we're a little bit big, actually. You know, what if we squash you by mistake or one of your friends? And they said, I know, said Holly. And she waved her magic wand. Bing! And Aunty Lisa, Aleksander and Kristoffer went to teeny tiny size. And Aunty Lisa went, oh no, this could end horribly. But now they were teeny tiny sized people. And the planes that they'd flown over on, well, they hadn't flown over, they'd chased it, were enormous and a little bit terrifying, especially where the ink was starting to run because they got soaked. So, Holly and Ben said, hey, do you want us to show you round the little kingdom? And everyone said, yeah, would we? That sounds amazing. So they took them on a tour of Ben and Holly's little kingdom. And they met lots of elves. And they met, obviously, Gaston. Gaston? I always say his name. I called him Gustav once, didn't I? Anyway, the ladybird. Who's like a dog. But it isn't a dog, it's a ladybird. They met him. And they met, obviously, the king and the queen and all those people. And all the elves went, we're elves. Anyway, so Aunty Lisa said, hey, this is a super peculiar day. What else can that magic wand do? And Alexander said, yeah, can it give us superpowers? Kristoffer went, oh, yeah, superpowers sounds awesome. Let's get superpowers for the day. And Holly went, I suppose it can do superpowers. And Ben said, are you sure you want to try this out on these big people? You've already shrunk them. And Holly went, well, it's just a bit of magic. What could possibly go wrong? Now, as it turns out, quite a lot can possibly go wrong when you play around with magic. But Holly's a kid and she doesn't worry about these things. So, she said, well, what kind of superpowers do you think you might like? Aunty Lisa was having a little think. What kind of superpowers do I want? Aleksander and Kristoffer were also having a think. Now, just as they were pondering the kind of superpowers that they might like, the Sunny Bunnies bounced by. And this was very peculiar because they're not even part of the same kind of franchise as Ben and Holly. But the Sunny Bunnies bounced by. And Aleksander, Aunty Lisa and Kristoffer looked at the Sunny Bunnies and the Sunny Bunnies looked at them. And they giggled and they laughed and they bounced up and down and they rolled around and then they zoomed off in the other direction. And they said, well, that was a very strange thing to happen. You don't often see a Sunny Bunny. If not ever see a Sunny Bunny. Well, so they zoomed by. Now, it was time for superpowers. Aunty Lisa decided that actually the superpower that she would most like would be to be able to have laser eyes. Not the kind of laser eye surgery you can get where it makes your eyes a little bit better, but actually laser eyes like Superman has that can melt things. She thought that would be pretty cool. I could heat stuff up, like anytime your tea got a bit cold, you could just go, and then the tea would warm up. Brilliant. And if you want to start a fire when you're camping, start a fire. Brilliant. She couldn't see a problem with this. And she said, I would like laser eyes, please. And Holly went, ba-ding! And Aunty Lisa went, oh, I'm going to try it out. Have you got any tea? And Holly went, we'll get some tea. Here's a cold cup here. And Aunty Lisa went, and the cup of water that it was started to boil. And she went, oh, put a tea bag in, made herself a delicious cup of tea. Oh, she was super thrilled with her new laser eyes. That obviously she wasn't going to keep forever, but it was still fun. Aleksander and Kristoffer both had a little think, and they decided that actually their superpower that they both really, really wanted was to be able to fly. Aunty Lisa said, I'm not sure that's a very good idea, you two. How am I going to keep track of you when all I've got is laser eyes? Holly said, don't worry. Bidding! And Aleksander and Kristoffer took off the ground. And Aunty Lisa went, oh no, they can fly. Uh-oh. And they started zooming about all over the place in Ben and Holly's little kingdom. They zoomed up that big tree where the elves lived, and they zoomed around and around and around and around and around and around it, and then they zoomed over to the castle, and they zoomed around and around and around and around and around that, and they were both just flying around. Well, they caused such a commotion that a passing dog ran over. Uh-oh. It was gonna be a horrific disaster. The dog had mistaken Aleksander and Kristoffer flying about all over the place for some birds. And the dog started barking at them because he thought that he didn't like those birds. And now I'm thinking about it, it's occurring to me a cat would have been a better animal. Well, anyway, the barking of the dog attracted a cat. A really, really big, scary, mean-looking cat. And it did this. And it prowled up to where Aleksander and Kristoffer were flying about like crazy loons. The dog was still... I'll begin from where I was, because do you know what I did? I set an alarm to remind me to do a show, and it interrupted my show and made it stop recording. Anyway, as I was saying, there's a cat and a dog, and the cat and the dog are both looking at Aleksander and Kristoffer, who were tiny weeny people who were flying around like crazy loons. Aunty Lisa was like, get back down here now! And Aleksander went, I don't know how! We were flying all over the place. And Kristoffer went, I'm having too much fun! And Aunty Lisa went, get down here now! A cat is going to try and gobble you up! We need to get inside straight away! Well, there was nothing for it. Aleksander and Kristoffer were just zooming about all over the place, and the cat was jumping and jumping and trying to catch them. And by this point, so was the dog, who'd forgotten he was a dog and thought he might be a cat after all. And they were jumping and trying to catch Aleksander and Kristoffer, and Aunty Lisa was getting so worried she thought she might be busting for the toilet because she was so scared that Aleksander and Kristoffer were going to get eaten. Well, she couldn't have that. No, no, no. She needed to distract that dog and that cat. And now that she only had one superpower, she thought, how am I going to use that? Well, as it turns out, laser eyes not actually very helpful in distracting dogs and cats, apart from, as we all know, cats will follow laser pens anywhere. Now think about it. Wait, bear with me. You know when you have a torch or a laser light, and you shine it on the floor, the cat will be like, well, That's what Aunty Lisa did with her eyes on the floor nearby to the cat. And the dog as well went, what is that? And everywhere Aunty Lisa's eyes landed on the ground, she was leaving a pattern of smouldered grass. She was making the cat and the dog go crazy, and they stopped chasing Aleksander and Kristoffer and started chasing after the spot where Aunty Lisa's laser eyes were making a little burning patch. Well, as luck would have it, this distracted the cat and the dog long enough for Holly to zoom up to where Aleksander and Kristoffer were flitting about all over the place, grab the two of them and bring them back down to earth. The cat, meanwhile, found a butterfly to chase, and the dog got called back by his owner. Whew, all was saved. Everyone was going to be okay. Aunty Lisa said, right, I think we need to lose these superpowers because it turns out they're more dangerous than you think. And Holly agreed. And she said, okay, I'm taking away your superpowers. Bing, bing, bing. And Aleksander and Kristoffer went, oh, no, I really enjoyed flying. And Aunty Lisa said, no, it was too dangerous. You nearly got eaten by a dog and a cat. And they went, okay. Aunty Lisa said, I did quite enjoy having laser eyes for a little bit there, but I think I'm glad that my eyes are not lasers anymore. Then Ben said, what's that smell? Aunty Lisa turned around. She'd set fire to a patch of grass with her laser eyes, and it was starting to blaze. Oh no! So, well, in a hilarious twist, I didn't stop the alarm, I pressed snooze. So it played again and stopped my video. Anyway, here's what happens. Aunty Lisa had set fire to a little patch of grass. This, on its own, would probably not be too worrying, but it was right next to the big tree where the elves lived, and the castle, and all the rest of the little kingdom, and everyone was starting to panic. Ah! Well, as it happened, Ben and Holly had a very cunning plan. They had been planning to go out on a picnic, but they had been interrupted when Aleksander and Kristoffer's paper aeroplanes had landed on them, and so they had with them the magic picnic basket. This is lucky because the magic picnic basket can make anything you want. And on this occasion, they made it make something very useful in this situation, which was water. Ben and Holly went, well, Holly, not Ben, because he's not magic. Holly said, magic picnic basket, make us more water. And water started squirting out of the magic picnic basket. And it landed down on all the scorched grass and the little fire that had just started. And it went psh, and the fire went out and everyone went, whew, that was a little bit too close for comfort. Well, everyone was relieved that the fire had been put out and that Aleksander and Kristoffer had not been caught by a dog and a cat. And they said, you know what? Let's all go back to the castle and have some tea and cake. And Aunty Lisa said, that sounds like the best idea anyone's had all day. So they went back to the castle. Now, the king was a little bit annoyed that Holly had given people superpowers that nearly got them killed and nearly burnt down the whole of Little Kingdom. So he said, right, Holly, I'm taking away your wand for the rest of the day. And Holly went, meow. But then Aunty Lisa said, but we can still have tea and cake, right? And everyone felt a lot better after that. So they all had some tea and cake. And then the king said, well, do you know what? It's been a pleasure to meet you, Aunty Lisa, Aleksander and Kristoffer. But I think it's time you went back to the big people world now, don't you? It's nearly time for dinner. And your mummy and daddy will be worried. Or your mummy and your papa, Kristoffer and Aleksander. Probably Nanny and Gug won't be worried about where Aunty Lisa is. But there again, they never stop worrying. So he said, right, out of the castle and I'm going to magic you back to real size. So everyone went out of the castle and he went bing. And Aunty Lisa, Aleksander and Kristoffer went whoop, back up to normal size. Phew! And they said goodbye to all the teeny tiny weeny people of the little kingdom and set off on their way back home. And because I forgot to include her in the story, on their way back home, they bumped into Lucy, which was really nice. And they told her all about it. And she said, "What? But Ben and Holly is just a story made up for children's television." And Aunty Lisa said, "That's what I used to think too, Lucy. But it turns out it's real." And Lucy went, "Well, I never. Isn't the world an amazing place?" And they all agreed it was. Then everyone went home for their tea. And that is the end of the story. Love you. Bye-bye.